All right, we're in Genesis 1 tonight, Genesis chapter 1. The creation. I was saying that I need reminded sometimes of just how powerful God is, how powerful He was, how wise He was. No human being, no computer could think of all the intricacies of our planet's creation. We're told in Genesis chapter 1, in the beginning, in verse 1, God created the heaven and the earth. It's interesting there, if you read Genesis 1 in its entirety, we find out everything that we really need to know. We find out that at first the earth was without form, it was void, and it was dark. And then the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, and God literally called light out of darkness. That's in verse 3. With no sun created yet, no moon, no stars, God simply said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. You know, there's an old saying, first things first. And in the beginning, we have the beginning of our planet. We have the beginning of our known universe. It begins with the account of God creating the heavens, the earth, and everything in between. Stars, insects, trees, galaxies, plants, animals, birds, fish, not to mention all of humanity. So one of the first things God does in Genesis 1 is shed some light on the subject. And says, "Let there be light." And when He saw it, it was good. Now, any one of us that have ever stumbled around in the darkness would agree. Light is good. Whatever you have to use in the darkness, it's just so uncomfortable for human beings to be in darkness because we can't see. We're created with eyes. We have other senses to help us navigate, but nothing like having plenty of light. I know our optometrist has a saying that my wife reminded me of years ago: more light, more sight. So now if I'm having trouble reading something, I know if I put more light on it, it'll be easier to read. Well, so it is with creation. When God saw the light, He said that it was good. He separated it from the darkness, and the account is, in effect, He called order out of chaos. Again, I refer back to verse 2. There was an earth, which is for another subject. That's for another discussion and for your own study. In the beginning, God created both, the heaven and the earth. In this account, the earth was without form and void. It was chaos. It was just like a mass, but without any order to it. And it was dark until what happened in verse 2? God's very Spirit hovered over the face of the waters, and God immediately called for there to be light, and He divided the light from the darkness. Verse 5 says He called the light day, the darkness night, and that was the first day. Verse 6, God said, "Let there be firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." And God made the firmament, and divided the waters from under the firmament, where the waters were above the firmament, and it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. And evening and morning were the second day. And God said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let dry land appear." And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters He called the seas. And God saw that it was good. Beginning in verse 11 then, the intricacies of our planet begin to shape up even more visibly. He said, "Let the earth bring forth grass, herb yielding seed, fruit trees yielding fruit after its own kind, whose seed is in itself." In other words, it's self-contained. It will continue to perpetrate because it has a seed inside. I mean, who'd have thought of that but God? Having created it, and then created the plants to continue to reproduce after their kind. Just like people, reproducing. Eventually He would create man and woman. Reproducing after our kind. It started with the vegetation. And the earth brought forth grass, verse 12 said, an herb yielding seed after its kind, and tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself, and God saw it was good. This was the third day. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, seasons, days, and years. In other words, long before we had devices to allow us to keep time, allow us to travel about, God made it so that men and women could look up and judge where they were, judge what time of day it was approximately by the position of the sun in the sky. By it being light, they knew it was daylight, dark, of course, knew it was dark. But even beyond that, mankind traveled great distances before any instrumentation was ever invented because of how God said that he would have lights in the firmament, stars and planets, to divide them, and that they would be for a sign, for seasons, for days and years. Only God in his wisdom could do that long before our man-made devices came into being. And God made two great lights, as we know, the greater light to rule the day, the lesser light to rule the sun, or to rule the night, and also the stars. All those were created by God. He's, as you can tell by this account, God is filled in and filling in the emptiness. You know, we live in a world that is so full now. Can you imagine when it was empty? That's the picture that he's looking at. It was empty, and God is filling it up. That's what our text tells us. As he began to speak into existence every living thing into this empty, void, dark, formless mass. There was nothing at first, just a planet, then land, then sea, then sky. Then God fills up his creation with trees and plants and vegetation. I said a moment ago before our service began tonight that I was reminded of this week because of the kind of coming back to life that spring brings. And how the fact is things are still living under the snow and the cold in climates that have that, but they come back to life along with nature, along with the grass and the buds on the trees. And the birds sing a different song in spring and summer than they do in the wintertime. And then all the animals of the species that are on the planet, currently 1.9 million different species on planet Earth. And all of them have not been discovered yet. So we know of about 2 million different species on Earth. That was all because God said so, and because God created it. He filled it in with plants and vegetation, sun, stars, the moon, fish, animals, birds, and then lastly, of course, he created man. The God of creation, in the course of 6 days, spoke light into darkness, order out of chaos, and filled the emptiness of creation. Only God could do that. The earth that you and I inhabit is about 25,000 miles around. We are traveling at 1,000 miles per hour right now as we spin on our axis. 1,000 miles per hour, while traveling through space around the sun at about 265,000 miles per hour. The planet is so huge, we can't feel that. Some other things come into play. Gravity, the Earth's core, 71% of the planet is covered in water. We live on the remainder of it. And all the other things, just the right distance from the sun, 93 million miles away, is our heat source, our life source. And we are spinning on our own axis. And by the way, Earth is not a perfect circle. We now know that it is circular, but it's a sphere. And it has a north pole and a south pole, and it's slightly tilted. And it takes 364 days in some odd time to make its journey around the sun. God engineered that. And every so often, by man's calculations, we have to have a leap year to make up for that extra day that's kind of filled in. So we're right at the right distance. God made sure of that. We're traveling right at the right speed. Scientists today still cannot completely explain gravity. What holds everything down? They can't. I mean, they have some theories, but they do not know exactly what gravity is. And again, I see the hand of God in that, because it's just absolutely amazing, his creation. And we're told about it. We're told about it right in Genesis. You know the story. He goes on to create mankind. After creating life in the sea, the Bible even tells us in verse 21 that God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, and the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind. So the sea life, which is different than life that walks on land. Again, here's God's creativity and imagination. You have life in the oceans. This is very simplistic. I'm not talking about microorganisms. Life in the ocean, life on earth walking, man and animal, and then above us, he created the fowls of the air that travel through what was called the firmament, and God called it the heavens. All producing abundantly. The creeping things, the winged fowls, those things that walk after their kind. And then in verse 22, God blessed them and said, be fruitful, multiply, fill the waters in the sea, and let fowls multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. And God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures after its kind, cattle, creeping thing, beasts of the earth, after its kind. And God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. Then for his crowning achievement in verse 26, and God said, let us make man in our own image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, fowl of the air, cattle, over all the earth, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female. And God blessed them and said unto them, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, the fowl of the air, and every living thing that moves upon the earth. And God said, behold, I give you every herb-bearing seed which is upon the face of the earth, every tree which is the fruit of tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat or for food. And to every beast of the field, fowl of the air, to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. And God saw everything that he made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. Just include a little bit of chapter 2, the first couple verses. Thus the heavens and earth were finished, and all the hosts of them. And on the seventh day God ended his work which he made, and rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he rested from all the work which God created and made. So, familiar story? Yes. Sometimes need repeating? Yes. Sometimes we need reminded that everything we see, I mean, there are hundreds, thousands of scientists investigating all the intricacies of planet Earth. This gives us a blueprint that it was created by a loving, almighty creator who did it with order in mind, and he had a purpose, and he created it in an orderly way. We have an orderly universe. Most men and women like order. We can deduce by that we have an orderly God. We have a God that likes order because he created things in order. And the universe and mankind and all the things of the earth and all the things of space that we see operate in order. So God is a God of order. But it's good sometimes to just be reminded how wise he is, how powerful he was to speak all of this into existence so that we could enjoy it. And that's another subject. But you know, he designed mankind and even animals to enjoy the earth that we're on. When I hear man nowadays saying that, well, we really didn't man was planted here by aliens, that we weren't really made for the earth. That is so ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. We fit here like a glove. And the reason is God took the dust of the earth to make us. And we're fit for the planet. We belong here. Don't listen to anyone that says we are a cancer or we are intruders. You notice there's been a move the last few decades to try to shame all of mankind. The elevation of animals with the decrease in man, that's not by accident. That's not how God intended. He clearly said, man, we would have dominion over the animals, over the planet. Does that mean animal cruelty? No, of course not. Not to torture animals. No one would in their right mind would go along with that. But there's an order that God established, and he set man at the head of it, made in his image and likeness. Now, we live in a fallen world, so of course there's going to be times when mankind will do wrong, and has done wrong for thousands of years. But I like going back to the original blueprint. I like knowing that this all came about because thus saith the Lord. God spoke it into existence. And boy, when he created this planet and the solar system and the galaxy and the stars and the heavens and the sun, put us, as I said, right at the right position from the sun, not too hot, not too cold, spinning just right, traveling at a great speed, and yet we can't feel it. What a wonderful God. What a great God. And I'm thankful that I can have confidence in knowing that God, our God, created the earth and the heavens and the fullness thereof.